Hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, my pleasure. It's always good to be in conversation with you.
I
Always.
know, I know, same. The feeling is mutual.
Well, thank you. So I usually don't do this, as you know, but I really loved your book, and I thought it would be really lovely to bring some of your wisdom into, our audience's living rooms and intimate spaces and all along. Uh,
Sure.
so I wonder if we can talk about your new book, Anatomy of Desire, right?
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
then, yeah. So just for whoever that is watching, my friend, Dr. Emily Jamea, has a PhD in clinical sexology and has been a sex and relationship therapist for over 15 years now. And she has published research in prominent journals and sold out workshops for individuals and couples in search of thriving relationships and romantic relationships, fostering desire. So, all of those great workshops. And has been interviewed by Oprah Magazine, BBC, CNN, NBC, Women's Health, and you name it. She's been there and spreading wisdom to everyone. And she's one of the featured experts for Flow, the world's leading women's health app. And she writes a monthly sex column for healthywomen.org. Check it out. And hosts a podcast called Love and Libido. And I had the pleasure to be on your podcast and in conversation with you. So it's really nice to be in conversation again.
Totally.
First and foremost, I have to say, Dr. Emily, that I really like the cover of your book.
I know. Is it not like the most gorgeous cover you have ever seen?
I think it's gorgeous, but also it depicts the idea of how complicated, complex, and beautiful and inviting desire could be. So it's not just one solid color. It's
No.
all interconnected and different colors, different shades, and I really like it.
Yes, and not just one image. I mean, it kind of is a double image depending on how you look at it. It actually took me like a day to realize there was more than one image on the cover. So I love that because our sexuality, our desire is so nuanced, and there's usually more to it than meets the eye.
Absolutely. And I think, when we reduce it to a box, that's where we go wrong, when people get
Mhm.
stuck, right? So
Totally.
let's talk about this anatomy of desire.
Yeah.
Why did you call it anatomy of desire? Why anatomy?
I just think there is so much that builds our desire. And I think that, like our anatomy, there are some fundamental basics that we all share, some things that are probably going to be important for most people's desire. But there is so much also that makes us unique individuals. So we can have the fundamental building blocks that are the same, but then when you take a step beyond that, we start to enter into this really complex, unique world for every individual. And that's one of the things that makes writing about desire kind of complicated because it's not a one size fits all approach. And that's something I want people to keep in mind as they're reading this book. I view it more as a menu than a roadmap. It's not like you go from point A to point B and expect your desire to improve or for you to have necessarily a healthier relationship with your sexuality. I just think, though, depending on where you are in terms of your relationship with yourself and your relationship with your partner and with your sexuality, you may kind of dip into one chapter or another, just depending on what you need at that time.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So that's what I thought. I thought that, by anatomy, you meant different pieces that come together to make the whole and
Yes.
represented in the picture on the cover.
Mhm.
So um, after that definition, one other thing that struck me was how you talked about the universality of it, as well as the individual attributes of each individual, each relationship, whatnot. But I
Mhm.
wonder, so do you want me to go through the five secrets, as you call them, secrets?
Sure, let's do it.
So, as you name them, are curiosity, sensuality, adaptability, vulnerability, and attunement.
Yes.
So I wonder, can we go one by one, just based on your definition? Because when I read curiosity, I have my definition of it, or
Yeah.
attunement, I have my. So I want to hear your definition of it. Can we go curiosity?
Yes. So to me, curiosity is about always maintaining an open mind, not just about ourselves, but also of our partner and again, of our sexuality. We are living, breathing organisms. We evolve with time. But what I think a lot of people do is they kind of get to know someone in the beginning of a relationship and they in a way pigeonhole themselves or that person into this kind of narrow definition and forget to stop asking questions about who they are 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So curiosity is that in part. It's also about being really curious about the ideas, values, and beliefs that we hold or have internalized about relationships and about sexuality. I think a lot of times we don't realize how automatic we become when it relates to some of the ideas and values we hold about sexuality, and don't really spend a whole lot of time putting our analytical caps on and really asking whether some of the values we hold apply to us or are in alignment with our most authentic selves, and we kind of just hop on a train that's waiting at the station. So curiosity is about asking questions of ourselves, our partners, and our sexuality.
That's lovely. So I have another follow-up question to that
Yeah.
before we go to the next one. I wonder, so this definition is great, asking questions. How about, I often talk about asking informed questions. Like if
Mm.
you ask that question a million times and I answered it, uh,
Yeah.
then why are you asking it again? Or for example, if I just told you that I like this or that, why are you, like just for the sake of asking? So is
Yeah.
there quality to those questions that you guide people?
For sure. I mean, I think we always have to try to ask the deeper, more meaningful, open-ended questions as much as possible, rather than asking, did you have a good day at work today? It's what was the most challenging thing you experienced at the office today? I mean, that opens up a conversation. That allows us to maybe get to know a part of our partner that they had to tap into that day that we wouldn't have otherwise really had the opportunity to explore and understand. So I do think the way we frame questions is really important.
So the open questions is
I
the
think
way to go.
open-ended questions, definitely, definitely, because that's the only way we can have a conversation. If you're just asking yes, no questions, you're not going to get very far.
Right. So in a way, instead of asking, do you like this or not, how do you like this?
Yeah, or what is it about this that you like or don't like, and why? Always follow up with the and why. People in our friend group give my husband a hard time because he's always asking why, why. But it's true. I mean, he has one of the most curious minds I've ever seen, and so definitely asking that follow-up why question, I think, is really important.
Mhm. And also maybe we put it in parentheses for people that when they ask why, they're not interrogating the other person. They're just why with that stance.
Exactly.
I want to
Yeah,
know, right?
like from a place of like, I genuinely know. I want to get to know and understand you, that's where that's coming from. Because that deepens our relationship, the way we relate to our partner early on is going to look different down the line. And so and we're maybe sneaking into the adaptability chapter a little bit here, but we've got to continue to ask those questions so that we can grow, not just as individuals, but as a couple, which is kind of the gestalt of what we each bring in.
Of course. So you talked about curiosity and kind of linked it to adaptability. Do you want to go there?
Sure. If curiosity is asking the questions, I think adaptability is having the courage to implement change.
Mhm.
Nothing good is stagnant forever. Everything grows and evolves. And what happens for a lot of couples is when they are faced with some kind of challenge or hurdle, they find themselves ill equipped with the tools to navigate that in a way that doesn't maybe break or deteriorate the relationship. I've had, and I'm sure you have too, have countless couples who have like years of resentments build up against one another. And so in the adaptability chapter, I tell people to take a look at that if they feel like they are struggling to overcome a relationship or sexual hurdle, because I get into, forgiveness. I get into the importance of a social support network and how that can help us in our relationship. There's just a lot in there about the tools we need to adapt and grow from change. I talk about the difference between, people who get stuck in post-traumatic disorder versus stress disorder versus this whole new area of research on post-traumatic growth. Like, okay, we've gone through this terrible thing, but how can we grow from that? How can we use that to add complexity to ourselves rather than get stuck in our trauma? So there's a lot in there about that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I was reading your book, I couldn't get your voice and face out of my head. You're a very positive person in general.
Thank
So
you.
while you're very empathetic with the people that are in front of you and in conversation with you, it comes across in your book also. Okay, so not to do that, but here's how I'm showing you what to do. So
Yes.
I'm not gonna leave you in the fog, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say, hey, you're doomed for life. There's a way. There's a way to
Right.
do this. I like
Right.
that. Yeah.
I love that you said that, because did you know that I had to audition to narrate my own book?
Yeah,
They
okay, I did
want,
the same.
yeah, they wanted to use a professional narrator at first, and she was wonderful and lovely, but I'm like, no, 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 this is my voice. This is my baby. Like I can be the only one to bring this to life. So I had to send them an audition tape, but it's validating to know that as you were reading it, you heard my voice because,
Oh,
uh,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. For my book, I actually asked a very talented person to do this, but I did the intro and the ending myself because I thought in the middle you can use somebody else, but from
Sure,
the
sure.
beginning and the end, my voice needs to carry the baby forward. Yeah,
I
I'm with
couldn't
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love your voice. I think that, this is I haven't heard the audio yet, but I will get that.
Oh yeah, I'll send it. I'll send you a sample.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, do you want to go to sensuality? So, we had curiosity,
Yeah.
adaptability. If this is the
Mhm.
question, then keep going, keep evolving from the question, different angles, different corners that we go with our questions. Now, sensuality.
So, sensuality describes the degree to which we can fully inhabit our
Mhm.
own bodies during sex. We have become very disembodied. We do so as adults. If you take a look at any kid, like they're exploring the world through the five senses, and really only through the five senses until they have the use of language, and until higher order thinking comes into play. It's all sensual. But as we grow and mature, we're constantly getting messages like, think with your head, or, a child's throwing a temper tantrum. We're trying to interrupt that process to get them to start being rational little humans again. And look, I get it. I've got two kids. I've definitely tried to interrupt the tantrum, but they're very embodied little creatures. I mean, they express and emote and everything through their body, but we stop doing that. And then you add on to that technology and the degree to which we're multitasking all day long. I tell people, women in particular come in complaining of an inability to focus during sex, and women in particular are doing five things at once most of the day. And so I'm like, you cannot expect to go from focusing on five different things to the singular act of sex and expect to be present in your body for it. Like at the flip of a switch, it just doesn't work like that. So we have to do a lot, I think, to single task as much as possible, trim the fat from our lives so that we can slow down and really go from humans doing to humans being again, which I think is a real challenge in today's world. So this chapter is really a call to get back to the basics as much as you can. Spend time in nature, whether it's, eating mindfully, or when you're at the gym working out, like just work out. You don't have to listen to a podcast at the same time. We just, unless it's mine, of course. No, but, it's just really important as much as possible to single task, to build that neural network of focusing on just one thing, because I think only then can we focus during sex.
I completely agree. Completely. And I love the fact that in that chapter, actually, you give a lot of examples as how does that look like. Like, for example, you said eating and being in nature. There are
Yeah.
tons more of examples here that you give people as how to be actually mindful, embody
Yeah.
your body, basically, right? Because sexuality doesn't happen without bodies, usually. You can
Right.
exercise, but most part, for the most part, the bodies are involved.
Something we're doing with our body. Yeah. And I think to fully experience all of the pleasure that our whole body is capable of, we have to start paying attention to it. And not, I think mindfulness is such a buzzword today, and it's great. I mean, we have tons of research to suggest the benefits of mindfulness in pretty much every area of life, including sex. And I think it's a great first step, but this takes it a step further. Embodiment, when we're fully embodied, it's more of an awareness as the body as opposed to an awareness of the body. I think mindfulness practices still maintain a little bit of a disconnect, and embodiment's like the mind just sort of shuts down and we are our bodies. And that's where I'm trying to get people in this chapter.
And that's why at the beginning of the book, I think that the first few sentences, you promise people that if
Mhm.
they really follow these steps, they will experience what they
Yes, I believe so. I really.
desired sex life. Yeah.
And just to follow up on that, because it's a big deal to promise anyone an outcome, right? If you look at each of these secrets or qualities, we are born with them. To reiterate, we are born sensual, curious, adaptable, vulnerable, and with the ability to attune. So anyone reading this, I want to remind you that it's not a matter of becoming someone you're not. I view this really as reconnecting with qualities which we already possess, but have maybe become disconnected from.
It sounds so calming to know that you already possess them. So come back home
Yeah,
instead
it's
of go
already
and
there.
chase and find somebody else. Yeah.
It is already there. It really is.
That's
Mhm.
great. That's great. So let's go to vulnerability and then attunement, shall we?
Sure, sure. So vulnerability, I think, describes our ability to feel safe enough in presence with those we care about to open up emotionally with that person, not just in communication with them, but also in the erotic space. I think, and this may sound a bit kind of counter to what we were just talking about with sensuality, but adding emotion is one of the ultimate qualities that humans add to a sexual experience. I mean, animals don't experience emotion in the complex ways that humans do, at least not that we are aware. And so what happens, I think, when we reduce sex down to just a juxtaposition of body parts, we're cutting off from something that is really fundamentally human and adds such an interesting and complex layer to the act. And I think a lot of people don't know or understand how to tap into that when they're making love. In this chapter, I talk about eyes open sex and how so many, I've had so many clients over the years who will come in saying like, I'll do just about anything to try to spice things up. I'm like, have you tried opening your eyes and looking at your partner when you make love? And they're like, oh, I would never do that. It's like it's a really scary thing for people to actually let someone in emotionally when you're sharing your body with them. And so this chapter hopefully guides people very gently down that road.
And going again back to the basics.
Yes.
As basic as where are your eyes in that moment? Are you connecting through all
Yeah. Yeah.
senses with
I
your
mean,
body?
we think nothing of looking lovingly at a newborn baby for an hour, but suddenly our partner's in front of us and we're like,
So,
scared.
so
Yeah. And so we've got to push through that and start letting people in a little bit. And vulnerability is about safety. It's about emotional courage. In this chapter, I talk about women having the courage to tap into their more sexually assertive sides. And I talk about men having the courage to tap into their more emotional sides, because I think doing so makes us more whole individuals. And the more we bring to the bedroom, the more exciting the sex.
That is so true. The more parts of ourselves that we
Mhm.
bring to the
Yeah.
bedroom.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And the attunement?
So attunement describes our ability to get in sync with a partner. So I love the analogy of, watching a pair of ballroom dancers who have danced together for years and how they appear to move as one unit. And, she knows what the flick of his wrist is signaling her body to do and moves almost intuitively to the way he's leading the dance. And, forget the heteronormative language I just used, but in bed, this is what hopefully can get people to a place where sex feels effortless and not clunky and ultimately gives us that feeling of transcendence, if you will. Throughout each chapter, I talk about flow and how to get into a flow state during sex. And when we are in a flow state, and this happens in any activity, we are so fully engaged that we experience a loss of space and time, and things feel very effortless. We feel in control, but it's actually kind of a paradox of control, and we have full absorption and rapt attention. And I think that's what a lot of people want to feel during sex. They want to feel like the world disappears. And so this chapter is about how to hack that feeling.
Mhm. So here's what I hear from you.
Okay.
All of the chapters, now I understand the almost the sequence in which they appear in book. It's as if, like, with curiosity, we talk about the importance of the questions and keeping an open mind and an open stance. And then you go to, as you go through the sensuality and adaptability, vulnerability, attunement, they all build on each other. But at the end, they are all coming to the basic.
Back together again. Exactly. It's like, so sensuality is the body, curiosity is the mind, adaptability, I think, is the soul, vulnerability is the heart, and attunement is everything together. I think that's, what makes up our anatomy of desire, is all of those parts.
Well, you said it, you brought it together. I was going to say, how do you bring it together? You did. You just
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. So what is your hope with your book?
Oh gosh, I mean, my hope is really just to help some people out. I really believe that we are all capable of really fulfilling sex lives, to find partners who we really deeply connect with and have sexual experiences that nourish us. I don't want people to feel like sex is a chore. I want them to see sex as an opportunity to forget the chores that they have going on, and it's an opportunity to escape the crazy world that we live in, and not just experience physical pleasure, but emotional connection and even self-expression. I think sex is a really unique space to do all of those things, and really I want to help people see it the way I do.
That's great. So you're an advocate for good sex.
I am exactly. Not just good sex, like great sex. Like
Great
we can do
sex.
better than good. Like this is about optimal sex.
Hey, that's amazing. You know how Peggy Klein Platts talks
Yes,
about sex that's worth wanting?
yes, yes.
That's what you're gonna get.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
wonderful. So thank you so much, Emily. I really wanted to speak with you about this and bring this perspective. It's I'm walking away calm.
Good. Yay. That's a
Really
great
interesting.
to have
Really
that.
interesting. I don't feel like I need to go here and there, and although I do this day in day out, but it feels like there's a calming effect behind your work and what you bring to the table with this, to take all of this pressure away and hopefully helping people with your book to get there. So I
Mhm.
just want to introduce your book again to people, whoever that wants this amazing book, Anatomy of Desire: 5 Secrets to Create Connection and cultivate passion. And as you heard, it's in Kindle as well as audio, as well as all forms that people
You
get.
can buy it anywhere books are sold. And I just launched tons of free bonuses on my website for if you put in your receipt number, proof of purchase, you get like tons, like $300 worth of free material, workshops, PDFs, all that stuff. So check out emilyjamea.com for more info about that.
That's wonderful. Is there anything else that people need to know about you, where to find you apart from your website?
I'm also across all the social media channels at Dr. Emily Jamea, so you can find me there. The website we mentioned, the podcast, Love and Libido. So yeah, check it all out.
Yep, that's wonderful. So wonderful people out there. There's a lot of resources for you. And here's the book again. So you know what you're looking for. Anatomy of Desire. And Dr. Emily, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. My pleasure.